Hello everyone, this is The Lost Boy. Thanks so much for clicking on this video. There's a couple things I want to touch on quickly before I head into the main topic. The first thing I wanted to mention is the Super NT by a company called Analog. A lot of you have probably seen the stacks and piles of clone consoles out there for all the different retro systems. However, the latest one out of the gate looks pretty special. It started showing up a few weeks ago on YouTube videos and has been available for pre-order for a couple weeks. But as of now, you can actually buy one. What makes it unique from the other clone systems is that most of those systems are based on software emulation, and the Super NT is programmed on an FPGA, which stands for Field Programmable Gate Array, which is sort of like a programmable chip that can actually simulate the original hardware of the Super Nintendo. What this means in simple terms is that there winds up being zero lag on your high-definition screen, as well as 100% compatibility with all SNES games. That's not true for all the emulation options. Also, it's basically like having a FrameMeister built into your clone console. So there's all kinds of crazy options for upscaling and lots of other cool stuff. And also, there's, from what I hear, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but apparently you can replace the stock firmware with other firmware that allows you to use ROM files instead of just cartridges, as well as to simulate other systems. So you could wind up getting the same result for other retro systems, such as Neo Geo or the NES or what have you. I'm not sure what all systems are available, and I'm not even sure how that works, but that's what I was reading. So it sounds pretty awesome. The only unfortunate thing is, it's pretty pricey. It's $189 US, and in my opinion, you can't really pick up the Super NT without picking up a matching 8-bit-do controller, which will probably make it more in the neighborhood of about $230 plus taxes, plus shipping maybe. So at this point, it's out of my price range, but ooh, I want one. The next item I wanted to mention quickly is I started to notice maybe a month or two ago that I hadn't seen any Cracked videos on YouTube for a while. And just recently I looked into it and I found out what happened. It seems that the Cracked YouTube channel is gone for good, may it rest in peace. The channel was pretty funny sometimes, so it sucks to see it's gone. At a glance, what happened seems to indicate that it was growing and profitable until about 2016 to 2017. Around that time, it was purchased by the EW Scripps Company for $39 million. Soon after the purchase, Jack O'Brien, the founder and editor-in-chief, left the company, followed several months later by Soren Bowie and Michael Swaim, two popular Cracked contributors. Then, just this past December, Dan O'Brien and basically the entire video staff was laid off in the interest apparently of cutting costs. What happened is just so predictable. Large conglomerate eyes juicy new business model and jumps in with lots of money, but relatively little thought, understanding, or commitment. Large conglomerate quickly sets about alienating and dismantling everything about its new business that made it successful in the first place. Large conglomerate wonders why the new acquisition now seems to be dying on the vine, and quickly decides to cut its losses and close up shop. I'm sure the timing of the adpocalypse was a factor, but I'm also sure that there were other strategies more viable than simply firing everyone. It's just sad. Predictable, but still sad. Now to this week's main topic. The proposed new tax on violent video games. Near the end of last month, the Republican member for Rhode Island proposed a plan to increase the tax on games with ratings of M or higher by 10%. This proposal is in response to the school shooting in Florida, and followed comments by Donald Trump on the power of violent video games to shape young people's thoughts. This seems to be another salvo in the flurry of arguments about gun violence and ways to deal with it. Violence, specifically gun violence, as in the case that sparked the call for the proposed new tax, is rooted in two causes. One, the propensity for mentally ill people to become violent, and two, the availability of weapons to those disturbed enough to use them in an attack, especially weapons that are designed to kill many people very quickly. Each one of these causes has been chosen by opposing political groups as the main reason for the gun violence problem in America. The left says it's all about access to guns. The right claims guns have nothing to do with it and the problem lies with mental health only. The idea behind the new tax is to take the extra money generated and put it towards mental health initiatives in the hopes that this will prevent more school shootings. In my view, mental health initiatives can absolutely lessen the incidence of violent outbreaks for mentally unhealthy people, but the question is, could we ever eliminate these violent attacks completely? The answer, of course, is no. If we can at least agree that violent acts by mentally unhinged people can never be completely avoided, the conversation must necessarily turn to how we can minimize the damage done when some crazy bastard inevitably falls through the cracks and commits an attack. This means that both parts of the conversation are equally necessary. The next item for me is if we're talking about taxing violent video games, then we need to determine just how much those games are contributing to school shootings as opposed to, say, violent films or music videos. Why should other artistic forms of media get a pass if not games? And you couldn't really stop there, could you? What about music that could be linked with depression in teens? Tax that too, or just outright ban it? I'm not saying mental health initiatives are bad or unnecessary at all, just the opposite actually. What I am saying is that if these initiatives are considered a priority, as they should be, leaders should take a wider view of the issue and make the money for those programs available through regular taxation and budgeting methods. This isn't just about school shootings anyway. What about the one last October in Las Vegas that happened at a country music concert? Or the other one in Orlando in June of 2016 that happened at a nightclub? Did those shooters play lots of violent video games too? I heard one of those attackers gambled a lot. Maybe we should consider an extra tax on gambling. While I think the proposed tax is ignorant and misdirected, I do believe that mature content can and does have a negative effect on children and young people. While drawing a direct line from violence in games to school shootings is ridiculous in my opinion, that does not mean I agree with youth having unfettered access to mature content of any kind. I stated in a previous video that if the video games industry can't or won't self-regulate appropriately, the government will inevitably step in and the results will almost certainly be bad. This new proposed tax is exactly the type of thing I was talking about. Why not just make M-rated games unavailable to those under 18, just like R-rated films? The only explanation is that the games industry relies far more heavily on the purchasing power of children and youth than the film industry does, or at least did at one time anyway. As a child of the 80s and 90s, I can tell you that even as a person with an overprotective mom, I was watching R-rated movies long before I turned 18, with and without parental supervision. It happens. It's just a fact of life. But that R rating puts the responsibility on the parent or the person behind the counter. It puts at least some kind of barrier between a vulnerable person and a product that could possibly or probably break through that vulnerability. That reminds me of something else. What could that be? Something about access to potentially harmful products. Never mind. Must not be that important, I guess. So tell me in the comments, what do you think of the proposed new tax on violent video games? Are you going to pick up one of those sexy Super NTs? And are you sad to say goodbye to Cracked on YouTube? As always, I'd love to know your thoughts, and I hope you're having a great week. If you enjoyed this video, I think there's a button somewhere that you can press. It helps the videos get around, and if you'd like to see more videos, I'm almost positive there's a button for that too. Thanks for watching this video. Always remember your happy thought, and I'll see you next time.